Hey kids, guess what time it is? That's right, it's time for the first real episode of Gold Coast After Dark with me, your old pal BP. So, if you didn't see the pilot episode, welcome. If you did see the pilot episode, welcome back. Thanks for giving it a try. Now, before we get started, today's episode will give you a pretty good idea as to how things are going to shake out going forward. Be advised, however, that while this is a larger dose than the pilot episode, um, due to its organic nature, it's not the final form. Time brings changes. Um, so, in this episode, for instance, I'll read three excerpts of varying length from a couple of my books. The next time out, there'll be a shorter piece or two, then the start of a book which will be presented in serial form over several subsequent episodes, okay? As my books are often less than 100 pages long, which is why I refer to them as my 100-page wonders, to read through one is not like building the pyramids. And of course, you're not bound by a blood oath to see it through to the end. So stick around for the bits you like and then go make a sandwich or something. I neglected to mention in the pilot episode, no doubt, in all the excitement. So I'm telling you now, all my books, and there's a bunch of them, are available worldwide uh, from Amazon.com if you're in America. Other countries, check out your local Amazon affiliate. If you are in the European Union, which is where I currently reside, I'm in here in Nederland. Um, for my Dutch friends, please, if you want to order a book, order it through Amazon DE from our German neighbors who are right over there a couple hours drive away. That's because for some reason Amazon NL charges you an import fee about 4 times the price of the book, plus the book price. Amazon DE does not do that. I don't know why this is. No one has been able to give me an answer, but I think that's probably also how, say, Jeff Bezos gets to build a spaceship is by sticking it to people like you and me, uh, which we won't get into royalty rates. Why spoil an otherwise pleasant day? Um, so, you can also, all my books are listed on my website, which is www.billparkermusic.com. Uh, there are also links for each one to its page on Amazon. There are the more recent books also have a little synopsis attached to them, so you get an idea what's going on there. All right, enough of that. Um, Quick drink of tea. I drink a lot of tea. This is a mug for a product called Chocomel, which is a chocolate thing. The Dutch don't normally drink out of big cups. They tend to drink more like an espresso type size. And that. So, what can I say? There we go. That's a little cultural difference and a cultural exchange here for you. Okay, today's first book, the first bit we're going to read, comes from a book called Rode Hard and Put Up Wet, The Return of the Good Karma Cowboy. And that's what it looks like. Okay? And then it has an artsy bit of the cover again in black and in like negative on the back. That's real sharp stuff, isn't it? Okay, so here we go. We get started, and you'll notice I use playing cards for bookmarks. There's no fumbling through the pages here. This is a professional operation. All right, so what we're doing here, this is from a piece called Nearly Armistice Day. Actually, it was titled Page 21, Nearly Armistice Day, because it actually starts on page 21. Truth in advertising, folks. That's what you get around here. Okay, by day, cities in the rain are drab, dismal affairs, all gray and splashy, luckless pedestrians, grim-faced and hunch-shouldered, stranded at crosswalks and bus stops, every so often glancing skyward with a doubtful, when's it going to stop expression, knowing it doesn't matter because it's already too late. Their shoes and coat are soaked, their hair's a mess, they're running late, and with their luck, by the time they get home, they'll be feeling twinges of a cold that will be in full force by lunchtime tomorrow and make for a miserable weekend. Rainy day cities are black and white photographs from the late 1940s, a retrospective life after the war or how we lived exhibit come to life. Rising cigarette smoke, the scrape and sizzle from an overworked short order grill, carry out cups of coffee so lacking in insulative properties they have to be carried with a thumb on top, ring and pinky fingers on the bottom. Rainy night cities, on the other hand, as opposed to rainy day cities, are glistening pavement, streams of neon running down sidewalks and puddling against the curb, the slap of taxicab windshield wipers, the hiss of a bus's doors opening and closing, the low rumble as the bus pulls away, and a procession of headlights coming towards you, becoming an endless line of irregularly pulsing brake lights trailing into the distance. Rainy day city scenes become photographs. Rainy night city scenes become paintings. But on a rainy night in the city, shouldn't you be able to feel something other than damp and inconvenienced? I've been in big cities on rainy nights: Chicago, London, Amsterdam, Rotterdam, Memphis, Seattle, and I've been in smaller towns on rainy nights: Denton, Texas, my favorite town in the Lone Star State, Brunswick, Georgia, Hammond, Indiana, some town in Germany whose name I don't remember, and my beloved Calumet City and Gold Coast neighborhood. There has always been a common rainy night feel to them, an underlying current, the presence of which is only felt when everything about the day to day is thrown out of whack by what contemporary media weather types call a rain event. Everything occurs at eye level on rainy nights in the city. The neon signs, whose hues normally seem so vivid when the sun goes down, are muted by the rain and the clouds of mist thrown up by traffic. The same can be said of normal city sights and sounds: the hustle and bustle, the constant stream of office workers and noontime shoppers, the snatches of conversations. High heels clicking along the sidewalk are, for all intents and purposes, gone. The dominant sounds are automotive: the hissing of tires on wet pavement, slapping windshield wipers, the occasional honk of a horn. The Big Sleep, The Third Man, Breakfast at Tiffany's, The Goodbye Girl, 3 Days of the Condor, and of course Blade Runner. In a rainy night city, you can be anyone, anywhere. A private detective, a spy on the run, a fanciful lover, or a forgotten saint. No one will notice, no one will mind. What the rain doesn't obscure, it washes away. Okay, time for another drink of tea. Okay, now there's two more bits. I think there's two more bits. Actually, there's 3 more bits, but none of them are terribly long. But that one was the previous one was so mature and somber. How about a card trick? All right. See that? Jack of Hearts. This is called the Dancing Jack of Hearts trick. So now take another look at it. All right, there you go. Jack. This is actually a picturesque souvenir packet of cards from Greece. Uh, that's why it doesn't have your typical one-eyed jack on it. But, okay, got it? Jack of Hearts. All right, now, I want you to imagine that Jack of Hearts dancing. Close your eyes, all right? Screw them up tight if you got to, like a little kid would. And imagine that Jack of Hearts just dancing away like magic. Okay, keep your eyes closed on a count of 3. Open them up again. 1, 2, 3. Look at that Jack of Hearts dancing along right there on top of the book. Okay. All right. Anything is liable to happen here on Gold Coast After Dark. Okay, so this next part is from Sunset, is the name of the book, described as more dispatches from the me-verse, the Bill-verse, and the spook house between BP's ears. Right up here, folks. There's the cover again. Nice scene of the sunset. Okay. This morning I'm sitting at the end of a couch in a Dutch living room next to a large window, a picture window, we'd call it in the States. From here I can see across the whole of the backyard, currently playing host to 3 jackdaws, which are like crows. The still visible full moon is hung in a cloudless sky. 2 seagulls are taking the sunshine on the roof of the building across the drive. If I step outside, I'll be able to hear the hum of traffic on the highway, which is less than half a mile away, full of people and machines, all of whom are going somewhere. In another half hour or so, I'll hop on my bike and set out on my daily ride, at the end of which I'll be back here, right where I started. Will I have gone somewhere or anywhere in any meaningful sense? Is traveling in a circuitous manner the same as being in a rut? Something to think about. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I'm here to talk about bicycle geeks. They're definitely a subclass and they're worldwide. I don't mean accordion players, because no one jokes about accordion players anymore. And besides, I am not joking. What I'm talking about, brothers and sisters, not who I'm talking about, because they are a definite what, though I don't know what kind of a what they are, as I'm not an anthropologist. What I'm discussing here today are bicycle geeks. You've seen them. I know you have. No need to lie. No need to be polite, and don't worry, because God won't mind, because he doesn't like them either. In fact, that's why he sent them to us. That's right, bicycle geeks are one of the new plagues God has sent us to test our faith, to see if we're still paying attention. That's right. It's not like he disappeared or went down a dusty road or got lost, because God can't get lost. He knows where everything is because he put it there his very own self. God cannot get lost. But everybody needs a break now and again. Everybody needs a breather from time to time, even God. So when the end of the Old Testament came up, you know what he did? He took a breather. He took a breather just like you take a smoke break at your job. That's right, God took a breather. He handed the keys to the world to Jesus and said, take over. That's what he said. Take over, just like that. Take over. What could Jesus do? What would you do? Could you look God straight in the eye and say, I don't believe I want these keys to the world. Thank you very much. I don't believe you would. Would you be able to tell God flat out, no, just like that? Find yourself another sucker? Of course you couldn't. Neither could Jesus. So Jesus took the keys to the world, and we all know how that turned out. It could have been better. And a long time passed, but God came back. Yes, he did. He came back because he was just on vacation. He was just taking a breather. God was out for a smoke break. Now, God's time is different than our time, so he was gone a little longer than. Look, it's not like he went for a week in Cabo or a week in the mountains. God needed God-sized time off, and he took it. 2,000 years. God was gone for 2,000 years. There's good benefits that come with being God. Now, I'm here to tell you. So God was gone for 2,000 years, and he wasn't quite prepared for what he saw when he came back. Things had changed. He needed to know just how things stood. So he said, I'll send them a plague and see how they handle it. Now, God wanted to see who was going to step up, so he sent us a plague. And what was that plague? That's right, you guessed it. That plague, beloved, was bicycle geeks. Now, some of you might be thinking, surely he's wrong. That can't be right. Bicycle geeks are people too. No, they're not. They're like locusts. Very like locusts. They're like flying monkeys or walking catfish or a bunch of damn piss ants going to a picnic. Only the picnic's the whole world. Like a giant blanket, throw it on the ground, and they're all heading for the fried chicken and potato salad and them baked beans made with Mama's secret recipe and the molasses and brown sugar everybody likes so much. Damn piss ants. And every one of them wearing those tight shorts which shouldn't be allowed out of the house, and those bug-eye goggles. Got their bicycle geek helmets with the little mirrors sticking out the side, and those water bottles, they don't put water in them, no sir. They fill them to the brim with electrolytes. You know what electrolytes are? Do you know what electrolytes do? Neither do they. Nobody does. I know I've never seen one, and I'm in the grocery store every Saturday. You've seen me there, but you've never seen me buy an electrolyte. I bought some light bulbs, but I wouldn't even know where to look for an electrolyte. And I'd be embarrassed to ask. That's right. Bicycle geeks. God came back, but he sure didn't do us any favors. Didn't send any cards, didn't even take any Polaroids. Who really knows where he's been or what he's been up to? Gone 2,000 years and all we get is damn bicycle geeks with 1% body fat. 1% body fat. You ever see a bicycle geek in his fancy spandex outfit looking like he's going down to the last disco in town on New Year's Eve? No, you haven't. I know you haven't. And you never will. You know why you haven't? You want to know why you'll never see a bicycle geek in his fancy spandex outfit looking like he's going down to the last disco in town on New Year's Eve? Because he's only got 1% body fat. That's why. He'd be like a damn human popsicle in no time. Look at his split. Huh. Look at his split. Not even a dog would lick him. Just standing there in his spandex and helmet and them shoes. You ever see those shoes they wear? Lord, do not get me started on those shoes. Well, there we are. How about that, huh? I bet that was unexpected, your old buddy Bill slipping into character of my old friend Jimmy Page Turner, who used to work in the marketing department at Bopadu Records, some of whom you may remember, or whom some of you may remember, however that works out. Excuse me. Now, also got some bee pollen. We'll get into that later on after the show. All right. So, this next bit, continuing from Sunset, I don't have to fall into character to do this one, so you're all right. And I only have so many voices I can use anyway. This is called a mini manifesto, and it begins, we may all be one, but we aren't all the same. observed noted social commentator and man of the people Mick Jagger back in 1968. No two people, not even twins, are wired exactly the same, though all too many people seem to be wired in a very similar fashion. You hear a great deal talk about an ever-increasing need for diversity, from entry-level jobs to corporate boardrooms, from football coaches to political candidates. You hear a great deal of talk about how we need to be more accepting of lifestyles that differ from our own, but no one seems willing or able to promote diversity of thought beyond the occasional, well, sometimes you need to think outside the box. You should always be thinking outside the box. Hellfire, son, there shouldn't even be a box. So there's your new mantra, free of charge, from your old buddy BP. There is no box. Nearly every day we are faced with having to deal with limitations, either our own or someone else's, or occasionally, but increasingly, something else's. It's part and parcel of navigating through what my friend Big John Zielinski refers to as meat space. Meat as in meat, what we are. We're walking around in meat suits, okay? Not meat like, hey, what's your sign? Okay, meat space. Sherlock Holmes once told Dr. John H. Watson, late of Her Majesty's Indian Army, that the brain was like an attic and there was only so much room, so you had to be careful what you put up there. It's the same with emotions. Try caring too much about too many things, and you'll never be able to care enough about anything. We have to rise above the limitations of others and the limitations they would impose upon us. We have to keep free of intellectual noise and clutter. We have to resist emotional blackmail and manipulation. And we must always, always remember there is no box. Okay. Well, I promised there would be 3 bits, and there are 3 bits left. Well, there were 3 bits left. There's 1 bit left. We've already had 2. No, we've had 3. So here's another one. This is also from Sunset. I don't know. I just write the things. I send them in. They print them. They go on the virtual bookshelf, and that's just the way it is. I just write the things. They just come out, and I couldn't pass a quiz on my books, so so you expect me to be able to count and keep up with stuff? Come on. Um, okay, but this is, in fact, the last piece. Um, I put little helpful marks in here so I know where to start and I know where to begin. Okay, this is a little bit longer. This is a few pages, okay? It's like 4 pages. So if you need to, run right out. I'll give you a few seconds. Grab yourself a righteous libation of one kind, a restorative, and, maybe some potato chips or something. I like potato chips. Uh, but I don't have any right now. All I have is this cup of gradually getting colder tea and a stinking bee pollen, which is good for me, but it doesn't taste like much. It's not like potato chips. Okay, so we'll give you 5 more seconds here, and then that ought to be enough, okay? Okay, that's it. Gotta move on, okay? So we are. This is the last part. Again, this is also from Sunset, and it's a excerpt from the afterword, which is called Somebody. Well, it's late, way past midnight, and I was up too early yesterday after yet another too short night. Since the early 90s, all of my nights have been too short. No matter what time I fall into bed, I wake up no later than 6 a.m. or after 4 hours of sleep, whichever comes first. So let's go out on a positive note today, shall we? Over the course of producing nearly a shelf load of what I fondly refer to as my 100-page wonders, I have never attempted to mask or deny my disdain for catchphrases, common knowledge, and what everybody knows or accepts as true because, well, everybody knows, right? That's what they say, and that's why they say everybody knows. The wind has just kicked up, and I swear by the 7 hills of Rome it carries the voice of my sainted mother, Barbara June. Gone these 2 years now. If all your friends were jumping off a bridge, would you jump too? Nope. Sorry, Mom. You were right. I ain't jumped off a bridge yet. I also believe I heard the Venerable Slim Pickens say, Billy, it's time to get this thing on the hump and down the trail. And when Slim talks, I listen. Before the carnival arrival, let's make sort of turned life into a carnival. Before the arrival of cell phones, handheld digital cameras, and self publishing via the magic of the internet. Before we were able to do such things for ourselves, people would relate stories from their youth about what happened at family gatherings or of weird relatives or friends and neighbors who were, by all accounts, somewhere south of normal, and finish up by saying things like, if somebody made a movie out of it, nobody would believe it. Or, boy, somebody ought to write a book about that. You don't know how many times I heard that. Which, as loyal followers will recall, is how I got into this racket to begin with. It was that simple. You ought to write a book. And the next thing I knew, it was all of this and a whole bunch more, and probably more on the way. All right. But that's not the point. What follows, however, is there are three kinds of somebody in this world. The most common is the anonymous somebody who, by their action or inaction, has brought about an unexpected and often undesirable circumstance or chain of events. I don't know. Somebody must have blah, 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 blah. It's a close relative, perhaps even a cousin, of why do bad things happen to good people? Uh, but it's easy to see why it's so popular. A simple, I don't know, even if true, carries a whiff of the dumbass about it and could lead to the dreaded verbal abuse, followed by a shredded sense of self worth, which we cannot have in these warmer and cuddlier and fuzzier times. If, however, the answer is as stated in the preceding paragraph, there's a good chance the response will be along the lines of, well, we don't have time to play Who Shot John? We got a situation here, which is certainly preferable to, you're fired. The second kind of somebody is also anonymous. The somebody who should do something we think should be done, but are either unwilling or incapable of doing ourselves. Write a book, make a movie, remove this or that obstacle, put out this or that fire. It's the third kind of somebody we are concerned with. The somebody who is not at all anonymous, at least not where you are concerned. Yep, you guessed it. That somebody is you. Unless you're a loyal follower, etc., etc., of yours truly, You may not be aware of my having written the self-help book, The Only Book You'll Ever Need. Had that been a serious self-help book, in the foreword I advise the reader that the book may be of no use to them whatsoever. What follows might have fit quite nicely, but I would never presume to tell anyone how to conduct their day to day, even were someone to ask. Well, I got to tell you, people are not lining up and saying, Bill, what do I do? That doesn't happen. Not to me, anyway. At most, I would offer suggestions for possible courses of action and encourage them to try and view whatever was bugging them from a different angle, and to point out, as my friend Billy once did for me, that while this is how things are now, they won't always be this way. Don't panic. That said, here's a suggestion, or maybe a few suggestions, which is not to infer that you, gentle reader, have any kind of problem. Not for me to say. Anyone can sit around and talk about how somebody should make a film, write a song, write a book, do this, that, or the other. Doing so requires no talent, energy, or intellect, which is probably why it's such a popular thing to say. And there's always the possibility that someday somebody will do whatever it is, even if it's something that is incredibly third rate and borderline insane. The possibility is there. So here's my suggestion: be that somebody. Don't hesitate. Don't procrastinate. Don't ask for anyone's advice. Don't ask for anyone's approval. Don't rely on the kindness of strangers. Don't worry about the odds. Don't count on luck to see you through, if only because luck doesn't exist. Counting on luck is for suckers. The Roman orator Cicero maintained that what people call luck is, in fact, the intersection of preparation and opportunity. Okay? Keep that in mind. Most of all, don't do it for them. Don't do it for those people who are walking around saying, well, if somebody would just do this, do it for you. Once you realize you have the ability to make things happen, you'll never sit around with your buddies watching reruns of Friends or The Big Bang Theory while mooning about how maybe someday or just think if again. Okay? Now, this testimonial here. We're almost done. In December 1967, yes, I was alive back then. But I was only marginally closer to being a bass guitarist than I was to being an astronaut. Some friends from school were starting a band and found themselves lacking the key element of a bass player. Fortunately for me, 13-year-old bass players weren't growing on trees back then, and I was offered the spot. Through the combination of the band leaders and Guiding Light's patience, along with my having very good ears, quick hands, and what can only be described as a mania for practicing. You could have asked Mom about that one. I became what I needed and, yes, wanted to be. From time to time, we talked about what it would be like to write songs someday, to make records someday, to tour someday, always someday. My buddy David Lash wrote to the New York office of Apple Records, the Beatles' very own record company. And I started rehearsing for the conversations I was sure I'd be having before long with Paul McCartney, bass player to bass player. It's possible David and I may have been a tad over-optimistic. However, when it came down to it, three of the other four members had a very different view of things. We were, after all, a bunch of 13, soon to be 14-year-olds playing top 40 AM radio songs to other 13, soon to be 14-year-olds. High school was a few months away, and after that, adulthood and the real world. You could talk about writing, recording, and touring, but only as something somebody might do. But it wouldn't be us, not kids from Calumet City. Get serious. Almost a year to the day after it was formed, the band broke up. Before we graduated from high school, only two of us, Sue, our organist, vocalist, and yours truly, were still playing. That's back in 1972, folks. 53 years later, as of this writing, the music still flows. Sue has had a successful career and most recently was the musical director and pianist for Beautiful, a celebration of the music of Carole King and a certified smash both on Broadway and around the U.S., and I could not be happier for her. As for yours truly, well, you can ask anyone. I'm living the dream, right? Ask anyone. I've accomplished the things I wanted to do. I've toured, I've recorded. I became the somebody I wanted to be, uh, which is easier than you think. I got to tell you, it really is. You just got to do it. So to close things out, in case you've forgotten or skimmed past it, or page 50 is mysteriously absent from this copy, here's this. We have to rise above the limitations of others and the limitations they would impose on us. We have to keep free of intellectual noise and clutter. We have to resist emotional blackmail and manipulation. And we must always remember, always, this is key, there is no box. Finally, as legendary Memphis bluesman Furry Lewis would tell you, give out but don't give up. Anybody can talk about anything and never do a thing about any of it. Anybody can start something and find an excuse for not seeing it through. It takes nothing and means nothing to be anybody. Be somebody instead. All right, kids. That is it for the day. I thank you for your patience. And so this is your old pal, BP, for Gold Coast After Dark, saying